It was July 1972, in the thick haze over North Vietnam, when the sky itself became a weapon. Two F-105 Thunderchiefs, call signs Razor 1 and Razor 2, rose from Tak Ly Air Base before dawn, carrying Shrike missiles and a mission no one envied: suppression of enemy air defenses near Hanoi. The Americans called it Wild Weasel duty: fly into radar-guided death, draw fire, and kill the sites before they killed you. At 20,000 feet, the first radar pings cracked through the static. In the rear seat, the electronic warfare officer read the tone: fan song tracking radar, 5 o'clock high. The pilot eased the thud into a shallow turn, jamming pods humming, eyes searching for the thin smoke trail every Weasel dreaded. Then it appeared. A SAM-2 guideline rising fast, white plume twisting against the blue. Razor 1 broke left, throttling to full afterburner, contrails bending under G-force. The missile tracked perfectly, its flame growing larger by the second. In the gun camera frame it looked almost slow, like a silver spear thrown by some invisible giant. At the last instant it veered, missing by maybe 10 feet, the shock wave rattling the canopy and slamming the airframe sideways. The pilot's heart spiked. He rolled level just in time to see a second missile arc past him, and straight into Razor 2. The explosion bloomed like a flashbulb, fragments scattering through the thin cloud. One aircraft vanished in less than a heartbeat. The radio went silent. No mayday call, no eject beacon, just the hiss of background static and the pilot's own breathing. Razor 1 circled once, straining to see through the haze. Nothing but burning fragments tumbling toward the jungle canopy below. Every Weasel crew knew this risk, but seeing it happen at arm's length carved something permanent into a man's chest. Below them, North Vietnam's surface-to-air missile belts were layered like armor. Each launch site was guarded by radar vans, camouflage nets, and automatic flak batteries. The fan song radar would paint a target. The missile would ride its beam. The system wasn't elegant, but it was deadly and endless. The Soviets had built it to crush American air power. Back at Tak Ly, pilots called the SAMs telephone poles. They rose straight, wobbling at first, then steadied in the thin air. At Mach 3, they could climb 50,000 feet in seconds. The only defense was timing. Dive, brake, and pray the radar lost lock. Every maneuver felt like gambling with death. Skill might keep you alive once, but luck decided the rest. Razor 1 stayed on station just long enough to confirm there was no chute. He wanted to dive lower, to look again, but another radar warning tone screamed in his headset. The fan song had locked back on. He turned west toward Laos, releasing chaff as streaks of tracer fire arced blindly through the clouds. The jungle swallowed his wingman, and the war moved on without ceremony. The debriefing 10 hours later. He sat in silence while the intelligence officer marked another red X on the mission board. Each X was a man, not a number, and the board was nearly full. By late 1972, the air war had become a brutal chess match played at supersonic speed. The North Vietnamese fired over 6,000 SAMs that year alone, and American pilots learned to read the sky like hunters studying traps. The Wild Weasels were the bait, diving straight into the densest radar zones to draw fire away from bomber formations. Their motto, first in, last out, wasn't bravado, it was survival math. The pilot of Razor 1 had flown 38 missions by then, but none had felt like this. The absence of his wingman followed him into every briefing, every engine start. Even the pre-flight banter had gone quiet. He learned to listen for the subtle hums of his aircraft instead of the voices of his comrades. Each time he crossed the Red River Valley, the world narrowed to the glow of his radar scope and the sharp bark of his backseater's warnings. When a sight went live, the Thud's nose dipped, Shrike missile armed. The weapon locked onto the enemy's radar beam, turning their own signal into a beacon for death. The irony wasn't lost on him. Technology had become both shield and sword. During one sortie near Tan Hoa, a radar-guided SAM exploded, so close it cracked the windshield and shredded his right wingtip. Yet he brought the aircraft home on fumes, guided by a crew chief's calm voice over radio. The men on the ground met him with quiet nods, no cheers. They all knew luck had an expiration date. He never learned whether Razor 2's pilot survived the ejection. Intelligence reports were vague, prisoner lists incomplete. In the war's math, A name lost became a statistic, and grief had to wait for permission. When the ceasefire finally came in early 1973, the sky above Hanoi was quiet for the first time in years. Razor One's pilot stood on the ramp at Tokli, staring at the patched fuselage of his Thunderchief. The paint had bubbled near the intake where shrapnel once grazed it, a reminder of how close everything had come. Of the 30 aircraft that had flown with his squadron that year, fewer than half remained. The rest were gone, burned in jungles, scattered across rice paddies, or sitting in museums of twisted aluminum in Hanoi. He filled out one last mission report, listing his wingmen as MIA. It was a cold bureaucratic term, neat on paper but hollow in meaning. The war didn't pause for grief. It folded it into numbers and moved on. The pilot left the base with his duffel, saluted the flight line, and boarded a transport back to the States. No parade waited for him, just silence and the long echo of unfinished goodbyes. Decades later, when the F-105s were long retired, he would tell interviewers that what he remembered most wasn't the noise of the engines or the glare of explosions. It was the still moment before the missile missed. A sliver of calm when death passed him by and found someone else. That instant, he said, defined everything that came after. For those who flew over North Vietnam, survival was never victory, it was borrowed time. And every flight carried the memory of one that didn't return. The SAM that missed by 10 feet had written a story in the sky that day, one of luck, loss, and the thin line between the living and the fallen.